Hello there, Charlie Haldeman here. This is First News Forum, the program we run every week, public affairs, politics. We've even done a little bit of weather from time to time. But this week, it's State Senator Jay Paul Gumm, and the Oklahoma Legislature is in session, of course, on the weekend break. Thank you so much for coming in. And,
glad to do so.
You know, right in the middle of March Madness here in Oklahoma, making a run, of course. And,
sure.
Did you fill out your bracket?
No, didn't have time to do that.
Didn't do that?
No.
You know, President Obama filled out the bracket. Did you hear this story?
I heard the story.
He fills out the bracket. He doesn't pick Oklahoma, and Coach Cable, he has a few things to say. He says he'll let the president run the country. He'll run the basketball team.
Well, he didn't win a single county in Oklahoma, so.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the state senate and some of the things that have gone on and maybe some of the things that haven't gone on. Or maybe not gone the way you would like to see them. Your Senate Minute column, which is out, the last one talks about different aspects of what was Nick's law,
right,
which is obviously, it I guess, died an early death in this legislative session.
Right.
In its current, in the form that was as Nick's law. But then there are other bills that were some proposed amendments to.
Well, when the House killed Nick's law the second day of session this year, I said that night there's more than one way to skin a cat in this building, and there certainly is. So we've proposed a number of different ways to try to encourage autism coverage. So far, the only answer from the Republicans has been no. No coverage for autism, no matter what, even though that doesn't really jibe with Republicans across the nation. I mean, here in Texas, it was a Republican legislature and a Republican governor that has their version of Nick's law become law. Louisiana, Florida, Illinois, you know, it just goes on and on and on. It's across the partisan divide. For some reason, it can't do that in Oklahoma. And the chairman of the committee that considered Nick's law, that second night of session, he said, "We killed it, we're done with it." He obviously doesn't know me very well, even though we've known each other for 25 years.
Right.
We've proposed a number of different options, and we've never had an out-and-out killing of that. They've always found procedural moves to not have a direct vote on it. One of the proposals I made is to deny tax credits, premium tax credits, and any economic development incentives to any health insurance company that doesn't offer full autism coverage.
Okay.
Again, that continues to be tabled. They don't quite have what it takes to kill it right off the bat. And here's what we've seen. A number of Republican senators have come to me privately, and they said, "We want to vote for this, but we've been bullied by our leadership into being unable to vote for it." Which begs the question, are you there to vote the way your leadership tells you to vote, or are you there to vote your conscience? And I believe very strongly in voting your conscience. And I've been one of those who have stood up to my leadership, the Democratic leadership, when I think they're wrong on an issue. And I know how difficult that is and how much courage it takes. But if you don't want to make a difficult decision like that and to buck your leadership into doing what you think is right, then you need to find another line of work. This job is about making tough decisions. So we've had another option that we've laid out there, which would require the Oklahoma high-risk insurance pool, which is really the insurer of last resort. If you can't find health insurance anywhere else, the high-risk pool will cover you. It'll cost more, and your deductibles will be higher. It's picture perfect for people who can't get insurance otherwise for autism. They moved to advance a bill beyond the point where we could amend it, which is a parliamentary move to not deal directly with the situation. But that gives me the option to continue to propose these ideas because it's not killing the bill directly. So I'm going to continue to lay different options on the table until we find a way to help these families. And one of the frustrating things about this, those folks who are opposing this are some of the ones who love to thump their chest the loudest about being pro-life. I believe being pro-life continues beyond birth. And if we've got children who are locked behind the walls of autism, and we have a way to get them out, even though it may cost us a very small amount in insurance premium increases across the entire risk pool, then we ought to do that. Being pro-life means being pro-life even when it's difficult. And I've said very clearly, I think that they have failed the moral test of being pro-life with their continued opposition to Nick's law and other insurance mandates that would help improve the quality of health care for Oklahomans. They failed the moral test of being pro-life, I think, and you've got to do it even when it's uncomfortable.
These elected officials that have come to you privately, said, we like the bill, we'd love to vote for it, but the leadership has bullied us. For those that may not have any idea, how exactly does that work, that a representative or a senator is in office and they consider a bill or a decision, a resolution, whatever it may be, how does the leadership, or actually a party, whether it be party leadership, some sort of faction, how do you bully somebody into voting maybe something that they wouldn't want to vote for or vote against?
It can be something as benign as saying, you've got to back the party on this one. We need you on this one.
Okay.
We can't afford to take a loss here. And it can be something as evil as saying, I'll strip your committee chairmanship, you'll never pass a bill, you'll never consider a bill on the floor. So it could be anywhere in that spectrum. And the worst case is that they come out and say, we'll find you an opponent in the primary next time.
And we'll finance them.
And we'll finance them. We'll make sure you can't raise any money. So anywhere in that spectrum is what's possible going on over there. I mean, the Republicans, for the first time in state history, have a majority in the state Senate. They are learning that it is not all fun and games to be in the majority. You have real responsibilities, and as I referred to it in the press, the cold, clammy hand of responsibility reaches out and grabs you by the throat. It's a different world in which they're operating, and they're learning that, and they're doing what you would expect a majority to do. But when you have members who don't feel free to vote their conscience, that's where the system breaks down, and that's where the public begins to lose confidence in government. And I think at the end of the day, this will harm the Republican Party far more than it might help them by cozying up to the insurance industry. Oklahomans support Nick's law. I'm absolutely convinced of that. When I'm out talking to my constituents, I even have Republicans tell me, this is a good bill. It ought to become law. What's going on up there? And so we're going to continue to give them opportunities to do the right thing until the final gavel falls on May 22nd at 5 p.m.
Have you had any of your constituents come to you in opposition of Nick's law?
No, not one. And there may be some. I mean, not everybody agrees on everything.
Sure.
I've had some concerns raised about what it will do to insurance rates, and we've done legitimate studies that show the worst it would be less than a 1% increase in premiums across the entire risk pool. Less than 1%. That's far less than the rate of inflation. It's almost negligible. And one thing the House of Representatives did when they killed the bill, they commissioned their own actuarial study with an actuary that primarily does retirement issues. He came back and said the increase could be as high as 20%. Wayne Rohde, Nick's father, has filed a complaint with the Professional Organization for Actuaries saying that actuarial study is dead wrong. And that hit the wires just this last week. So we're fighting a multi-front war here to try to move this along. But at the end of the game, it's about helping kids. And if we can't help kids and these families who are struggling terribly to meet their children's needs, get them the therapies they want, then I question what our purpose is up there. If you can't help kids who there is a way to pull them from behind that wall of autism, doggone it, everything else we do is kind of just window dressing.
I understand. State Senator Jay Paul Gumm, we're going to continue here in just a minute. We'll talk about the grocery tax, the proposed elimination, how that's going in the legislature in Oklahoma City coming up. You're watching First News Forum.